London, United Kingdom 2008. The stadium is hosting a significant international cricket competition. A black chopper appears in the sky and the audience holds its breath. It drops straight down onto the field. American billionaire financier Alan Stanford is making an appearance. He approaches the VIP area with assurance. He has a black luggage in his hands. He opens it under the camera's flashes and finds $20 million in cash. He says the champions of the tournament will get this money. Journalists instantly print reports about the American millionaire taking over cricket and spectators are ecstatic. Everyone assumes this is a publicity stunt for a wealthy businessman who loves sports. In actuality, though, Stanford put on this show to win over the British aristocracy and entice them to fall for his financial swindle. Though the performance went on for the time being, his fictitious financial empire was running out of time. This is the tale of a man who, while posing as a bank, created one of the biggest financial pyramids in history and embezzled almost $8 billion from investors. Texas, USA, 1980s. Although Alan Stanford came from a humble background, he had aspirations of becoming a wealthy. He chose to leave the United States and relocate to Antigua, a tiny Caribbean island with loose financial rules, after amassing a little fortune from the crisis. He founded Stanford International Bank, an offshore financial company registered on the same island there in 1985. Stanford started using a variety of lies right away in an attempt to project a trustworthy and stable image. He asserted that his family has a lengthy history of banking and a stellar reputation. People prefer to believe stories like this, especially if they sound respectable, thus this earned him a certain stature among possible clientele. According to a story he made up, his grandpa had operated a bank in the Caribbean since the 1920s. This helped Stanford draw in his initial customers and provided him with the required air of success. The bank provided customers with enticing terms for investing and holding money while operating legally. Certificates of deposit, a well-liked banking instrument that promised a set return on deposited monies, were the bank's primary offering. Such deposits yielded 3 to 4% annually in other banks, but Stanford International Bank provided 3 times the yield of traditional financial institutions, ranging from 10 to 12%. It appeared to be a special chance. The bank's founder gave millions to charity to develop the island and increase its appeal to potential bank customers, and the bank passed all necessary audits. Alan therefore established a reputation as a philanthropist, in addition to projecting the image of a bright, driven banker and businessman. However, one of the largest financial scams in history was concealed behind this honorable exterior. Stanford International Bank rose to prominence in the 2000s as a representation of achievement. Tens of thousands of people from one individual. He began his business early, establishing a network of sports clubs throughout Texas, and he was young, bold, and ambitious. But when the state's economy collapsed due to the 1980s oil price meltdown, his company went bankrupt. Stanford, however, was unfazed. He started purchasing real estate for almost nothing by taking advantage of the market's volatility. 30 different nations were among its clients over a 15-year period. Enticed by promises of premium service and steady revenue, politicians, business people, and celebrities invested their fortunes. The bank's assets were over $8 billion, and its owner, Alan Stanford, had a net worth of $2.2 billion according to Forbes. The key to success was being exclusive. The selected few were the only ones who could use this bank. Stanford promised clients special circumstances, creating the appearance of stability and financial certainty. The world's wealthiest people would be impressed and want to do business with him, he claimed. He placed a strong emphasis on targeting high net worth individuals and expanding the company in a quality manner. Since wealthy people are not readily impressed, he claimed that something special had to be done to make them stand out, what he dubbed the Stanford standard of excellence. The bank's deposits produced 10 to 12% a year, although this was not due to a good financial plan or carefully considered investments. The plan was a traditional Ponzi scheme. Old investors were paid using funds from new investors. How was it possible for him to draw in such substantial investments? Stanford was aware that he wanted to project the image of a prosperous, well-respected banker in order to give the appearance of stability. He publicly spent millions on private planes, yachts, and Caribbean villas in an effort to project an image of luxury. He donated to charities, liberally funded politicians, and sponsored international cricket competitions. His political contributions were more than $2.4 million in the United States alone. Stanford rose to fame. He was shown on TV as one of the most prosperous bankers. He portrayed himself as a philanthropist who backed charitable causes. People were more likely to trust his financial firm as they saw his name at important sporting events and charitable functions. His bank was regarded as trustworthy just by virtue of its appearance. However, beyond the surface of wealth and power, nothing existed. Client funds were not invested in actual assets by Stanford International Bank. The bank as a whole was a trust-based fiction. Only as long as fresh customers continued to come in money could Stanford's elaborate swindle remain viable. Even though the bank's operations were first suspected in 1999, Stanford had the resources and connections to evade investigation. Clients kept making millions of dollars in investments as regulators looked the other way. But when the global financial crisis struck in 2008, everything was different. In a panic, investors started taking their money out of banks and transferring it to safer assets. Clients of Stanford International Bank discovered that their savings were just non-existent when they attempted to withdraw them. Stanford's attempts to defuse the issue failed as fear was sparked by widespread withdrawal requests. The bank's reputation was ruined. The bank was unable to return the money that people sought. One of the most significant financial developments in the globe in 2009 was the probe of Stanford's financial empire. It was a sophisticated Ponzi scheme that had guaranteed steady returns to its clients for decades. Regulators from the United States and Antigua opened an inquiry into Stanford International Bank. Stanford was formally charged with fraud by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission within a month. Only $500 million of the $8 billion in assets that were declared were found to be genuine during the examination. Stanford's personal spending, a number of fraudulent schemes, and partial investment payouts had all been funded by client money. When Stanford realized he would be arrested, he made an attempt to leave the country on February 18, 2009. A jet was waiting to carry him to a country where he hoped to find safety at a private airport in Houston. But his schemes failed. Stanford was unable to pay for the flight that was chartered. The private airline's requirement for electronic payments, which needed to be made via a bank account, was the problem. However, Stanford lost access to his money and credit cards as a result of financial difficulties and his accounts being frozen. His escape was thwarted because he was unable to pay. The FBI, which was already pursuing Stanford, intervened in the meanwhile. After learning about his escape strategy, they blocked up all escape routes. Stanford was taken into custody at the airport as soon as he tried to depart. Unable to flee, he gave up without a fight. The news of Stanford's arrest stunned the financial community and garnered international media attention. After Bernie Madoff, it was the second biggest financial scam in American history. It was not a Ponzi scam, according to Stanford. He asserted that he had never intended to cheat anyone and had never committed any actions of which he was not proud. He attempted to place the blame on outside factors like the economic crisis, but the evidence was too strong. Numerous former workers, customers, and business associates who reduced their own sentences in return for collaboration testified against him. Alan Stanford was convicted of 13 charges of fraud in 2012. He was given one of the worst prison terms for financial crimes in American history, 100 years, by the court. The fraud victims, however, never got their money back. Less than 10% of the $8 billion was recovered. The greatest crimes were never caught on camera until now. This channel takes you deep into the minds of masterminds, where every move is calculated and every silence is a message. If you are obsessed with perfect heists, criminal genius, and the truth they tried to bury, then you belong here. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and enter the shadows, where legends are made and loyalty is always a lie.